What's up you guys, Sasha here, and today I want to talk about something that is really important. It is the way people perceive unsecured credit. And the truth is, unsecured credit is not quite as unsecure as most people think. Now you hear a lot of people saying, well, this loan or this credit card, they're unsecured, so if I stop paying, if I default, the worst thing that's going to happen to me is I'll get some kind of negative marker on my credit profile, but there's nothing else they can do. It's unsecured. They can't get my assets, they can't get my house, they can't get my car. I don't care. I'm just going to let them do whatever they want. The truth is, it is a lot more complicated than that, and I'd probably go as far as saying there is genuinely no such thing as completely unsecured credit. Let me walk you through this one step at a time. Roll the intro. First, let's talk about what secured credit versus unsecured credit means. Most debt that you would have in everyday life, like credit cards, loans, all of those standard kind of ways of borrowing money, they're all unsecured. There is no asset that you are giving as a security to the company lending you the money in the case that you stop paying. Secured debt, most commonly in the UK, is in the form of a mortgage. Sometimes you'll have second charge mortgages, which is essentially a second mini mortgage on top of your main mortgage that goes onto your house. In some cases, there are loans that are secured against cars or other forms of assets. Now, if your debt is secured and you stop paying, you get charged off because you haven't made any payments towards your debt. What will happen is the lender will repossess the property that it has security against. You will have to move out your house, you'll have to give them the car, whatever it is. They'll then sell it. They'll then take all the money owed to them plus any fees and costs of enforcing the debt, and you'll then maybe get a little bit of a difference, but generally speaking, it's a really bad place to be. With unsecured debt, most people think none of this happens. Most people think, well, because I don't have any security up against this debt, I can get off scot-free. In fact, there is so much stuff on the internet advocating and openly encouraging people to stop paying their debts. They tell you that the banksters are just thugs, they're trying to get your money, you don't have to pay it, nothing will happen if you don't pay it. The truth is, quite a lot can happen if you stop paying it, and it's a lot worse than just a small impact on your credit profile. So if you begin missing payments on an unsecured debt, the first thing that's going to happen is they will begin chasing you for it. And with most unsecured debt, you have at least 3 or 4 months worth of this chasing before it gets any worse than that. So what they'll do is they'll send you some letters, they'll try to call you every now and then. It's not going to be too bad or too onerous because the Financial Conduct Authority authorizes and regulates pretty much every single lender in the UK, and as a result they're bound by certain rules. They can't call you too often, they can't send you too many letters. There's a lot of different restrictions placed on exactly how they can enforce the debt. Depending on the type of debt you have and the credit company that you're dealing with, typically after a period of between 3 and 6 months, you're going to come to the point where a formal default is going to be issued. What will happen is the credit company will send you a letter, they will notify you that a default is going to be issued unless you bring your account back up to speed, and typically by that point you have to pay quite a lot of money for that to happen. You sometimes are able to negotiate at this stage and say, hey, can I pay a smaller amount per month for a long period of time, get some kind of payment plan going, but if you don't do any of those things, a default will be issued. It's a minimum of 2 weeks from when they notify you to when the default can be issued, and this is where the difficulties are really going to start for you. First off, the default is going to go onto your credit profile, and this will affect any form of borrowing that you might ever want to do for the next 6 years as a minimum. Now the 6 years starts the moment the default is actually registered. It then renews every single time you acknowledge the debt, and any form of acknowledgement counts here. So if you make any payment towards the debt of any kind, that counts as acknowledgement. If you respond to an email, if you respond to a letter, in some cases, even if you acknowledge it verbally and that call is recorded and there is proof that you actually formally acknowledged it, there are lots of different ways that the credit card company or the loan company can prove that you're acknowledging the loan, and what will happen is the 6 years will continue being pushed back from the last date on which you actually acknowledge the debt. But by this point, you probably won't be dealing with a nice high street bank or the credit card company or the loans company. Usually what happens is when your debt is defaulted, it is going to get sold to the debt collection agency. Now, there's no extra legal power. There's nothing else they can do that a bank or a credit card company or whatever can't do. The difference is they don't care about their image. They don't care about their brand. They don't care about any of those things. They can pursue you much harder with a much more harsh approach than the banks ever will. And this can feel quite nasty. Now, they're not allowed to be threatening. They're not allowed to be formally rude, but there's a very fine grey line which will make you uncomfortable. If they feel like they're not going to get any money out of you, they're going to pursue you through the courts. And this is where it can get really bad for you, because what will happen is they'll apply for either a county court. In some very unique cases, they can go through the small claims court. In some cases where the amount is high or there's specific circumstances, it might go to the high court. And in all these cases, the likelihood is you're going to lose. And what will happen then is you will get either a county court judgment against your name or a money judgment against your name, depending on which court and exactly what the resolution is. The net sum is exactly the same. You are formally obliged at this point to pay money to whoever owns your debt, whichever debt collection agency or whatever credit company at that point you have to pay the money to. And it is not just a piece of paper. They are able to go and contact your employer and begin taking the money from your wages directly. They are able to go and impose freezing judgments on your current accounts. There is a lot of really bad stuff that they can do. I would strongly urge you never to get to this point if you ever can, because this is really, really bad. In the worst cases, they are legally able through the county court system or through the high court system to put a charge on your house. Now, they can't evict you and sell it there and then, but the moment the house is sold, transferred, anything like that, you'll have to pay the full value at that point in time of that charge to the debt collector, so there's no real way out. Aside from all of that, they can also go down a different route, and if none of these things work, if there's no possessions that they can repossess, if there's no wages to be collected, there's nothing else, they can go and issue a statutory notice. Now, this is quite unusual. This very rarely happens because typically they don't really benefit much from this happening, but it does happen, and it does happen more than you might think. And what will happen after a period of time and certain legal procedures is you will be declared bankrupt. That is, again, not a very good place to be. There's a lot of limitations it places on the ability to earn money and what happens with that money when it comes in, the ability to own assets and what happens to your existing assets. It's just something you don't ever want to find yourself in. So generally speaking, apart from your wages, your house, all your possessions and your credit rating, well, yeah, it is unsecured except for being secured against all of those things. Now, just a couple of pieces of information that are pretty pertinent here. One, if you live in Scotland, the rules are slightly different, although most of what I said still applies. There's slightly different terminology. It's not called the same thing. You have a 5-year period instead of a 6-year period, after which it becomes statute barred. But generally speaking, the process is largely the same. Now, at the end of this whole process, if you still haven't repaid, if they haven't got all their money from you one way or another, the debt continues to exist. Just because the statute bar does not mean it goes away, it doesn't mean it gets deleted, but in the practicality sense, it does pretty much disappear, because any company that is regulated and authorized by the Financial Conduct Authority is legally not allowed to pursue or collect any debt that is statute barred. If somebody sends you a notice saying they still want to collect it or they want you to make payments, you can flatly refuse and point out that the debt is statute barred and ask them to stop contacting you, and that's the end of it. They're not allowed to pursue it at that point. But before you get to this point, the likelihood is you're going to get into so much financial and personal trouble that it is completely not worth it. The likelihood is they'll be able to instruct bailiffs, they'll be able to draw money from your salary, they'll be able to find a way of getting their money. So I'll strongly urge you not to go down that path, not to go down the ignore and throw the letters in the bin path, but to speak to them and find a solution that works for you before it's too late. Now, I hope you guys find this useful. It's quite interesting. Most people are just not aware of the fact that unsecured debt is really, really not unsecured, at least in the UK, and actually it's the same in most other countries. If you like this video, please make sure you subscribe. This channel is all about personal finance. It talks about personal finance products, how to make more money online, how to keep more of the money once you do make it. If you like this video, please, please, please give this video a like. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps the channel grow and reach more people more quickly. If you haven't done so already, please just hit that like button. I would really, really appreciate it. If you have any questions, make sure you drop a comment and I'll answer every single question below. I'll see you guys later.